Hello, everyone. I'm Trask Howard, Senior Gallery and Exhibitions Manager at Japan House Los Angeles. It's my pleasure to welcome you to our second webinar, Beyond Aesthetics, A Journey Through Time and Tohoku Region, as part of the Design Museum Japan exhibition. Tonight, our guest is world-renowned architect, Mr. Tsuyoshi Tane, who is one of the featured creators and the exhibition scenographer for the Design Museum Japan exhibition. He will share a brief presentation about the exhibition, followed by a discussion with myself on the roots of Japanese design and how the Jomon people began to give shape to the human experience and spirit. After the conversation with Mr. Tane, we will be joined by Rose Lifschitz from the LA Japan National Tourist Organization office for information on travel to the Tohoku region. To open the program, I would like to invite Japan House President Yuko Kaifu to share a few words. Kaifu-san.
Thank you, Trust. Hello, everyone. I wish to welcome you all to this webinar. As you may have already visited, our current exhibition, Design Museum Japan, is bridging design and life, showcasing 6 top creators who went to 6 different areas of Japan to do research on uniquely Japanese design treasures. You may think of design as something contemporary and high-end products like fashion, architecture, and automobiles, but design does exist everywhere in our daily life. The exhibition asks you, what does design mean to you? Today, as a related program of the exhibition, Mr. Tsuyoshi Tane, who is a renowned architect and one of the 6 creators, will introduce the exhibition and offer a glimpse into the background stories and inspirations. He will also share insights gained from his research based on his manifesto, Archaeology of the Future, at the Goshono Jōmon Museum, nestled within the archaeological site of Goshono in Ichinohe of Iwate prefecture. To me, it was fascinating to learn from his research that design did exist thousands of years ago in the Jomon period when Japanese people started to make a settlement and live there. Mr. Tane today is tuning in from France, so it must be 1 a.m. or so in the French time, so really appreciate him for his participation. I would also like to extend our appreciation to NHK, NHK Promotions, and NHK Educational Corporation for making the exhibition and today's program possible. I would also like to thank JNTO for joining us to share travel information on the Tohoku region later in the program. I hope that you would enjoy the program today. Thank you. And Trask, back to you.
Thank you, Yuko. Now I would like to introduce our guest this evening, Tsuyoshi Tane. He is a Paris-based architect. He founded Atelier Tsuyoshi Tane Architects in Paris in 2017 after being co-founder of DGT Architects in 2006. He is recognized as one of the leading architects in the new generation as part of the 20 Essential Young Architects, as noted by Icon magazine. Tane-san believes in the idea that architecture holds a memory of place that connects its past to the future as embodied in his concept, Archaeology of the Future. Over his career, he has received numerous awards and honors worldwide, and including his home country of Japan. Some of these awards include Chevalier of the Order of Arts and Letters, which was appointed by the French Ministry of Culture in 2022, and the Jean Dejean Prize from the French Academy of Architecture, as well as the 67th Mainichi Design Awards in 2021, among others. Tane-san is frequently invited to lecture at schools of architecture and institutions for public talks. He has taught at the Columbia University Graduate School of Architecture, Planning and Preservation, both in New York and Paris, and this was from 2012 to 2018, and he is currently a visiting professor at Tama University of the Arts in Tokyo. Now let's welcome Mr. Tsuyoshi Tane. Tane-san, yoroshiku onegaishimasu. Konbanwa.
Konbanwa. Thank you, Trust. And thank you very much for Kai-san. I'm very much honored to be part of this talk event for Japan House in Los Angeles. So today, I would like to share through the experience for the exhibitor of this Japan House exhibition about Design Museum Japan. Before going through my experience, just a short, brief introduction of myself. I'm the Paris-based architect, Tsuyoshi Tane, the founder of ATA, Atelier Tsuyoshi Tane Architect. We are based in Paris since 2006 and then established my company. Working in Paris with the group of French, Italian, Japanese, including among other different nationalities, to think of architecture today. What we like to manifest through the designing architecture is called archaeology of the future. The idea of the archaeology of the future is to dig the memory of the place where the thousands of years of people have lived in our planet, and a lot of different types of memory. And in order to gather those memory to carry on to the future, we'd like to materialize by designing architecture. There are a few examples that I would like to share. Is one of the first large projects that we construct the Estonian National Museum in Tartu in 2016, and transforming from the Soviet Union air base and turning to the national identity of the museum, which won the competition in 2006. So this was one of the large first projects that we built. And later on, the first also the public museum in Japan was called the Hirosaki Museum of Contemporary Art, which was nearly abandoned this industrial heritage and converting to the contemporary art museum in the north part of Japan. Also in 2021, we complete one of the historical heritage at the Hotel de Marine and to introduce the private foundation of Altani collection for the permanent museum design. And currently we are working on a large project for urban scale in Tokyo for Shibuya city. Used to be the water canalization of Tamagawa waterway and bringing the fresh water from countryside to the Edo before Tokyo, converting to the waterway for the 2.6 meter of urban farming and to be ready for the new community around this neighborhood. So the construction will start this year and to go on next couple of years to continue this 2.6 kilometer of large urban farming in the city of Shibuya. Also, one of the important projects that you may know, the Frank Lloyd Wright, the greatest architect of America, has built in Japan for the Imperial Hotel in 1923, the second generation of the Imperial Hotel. And currently, the third generation of Imperial Hotel took over this project. And then in 2036, we are aiming to reconstruct the fourth generation of the Imperial Hotel in Tokyo. So these are one of the important projects that we are working in Japan. So today, I would like to introduce this exhibition called Design Museum Japan. It is an exhibition, but also it has a long history, which is started from 2003. The great designer Issei Miyake, who wrote the idea for the National Design Museum, which we don't have in Japan. So he started manifest to gather the thought to make the design is one of the very important subject that we like to share. So accordingly, in 2012, also Issei Miyake and Mr. Masanori Aoyagi presented to have a different big symposium to gather different designer and architect and even artist to talk about making a design museum in Japan. Since then, it's taking long period of discussion and also the this kind of 2019 that Issei Miyake called young generation together and to transmit his sort of the passion for this National Museum of Japan. So our generation to takes over this mission and to still trying to discuss about how the design of museum will be needed to construct in Japan. Among this discussion, we started kind of prototyping and to think what if there be needed for 21st century in Japan for having the design museum, what it could be the case. First idea was to think, what is about design? The designs maybe not only modern design, design could have been thought from different time frame, from long period of our life design. So looking at all this, we also call different designer, graphic, architecture, and fashion to be able to sort of spread around the different countryside and to discover the Japanese design among the north part of Japan through the entire mainland towards the Okinawa. By doing so, everybody goes around Japan and to find sort of treasures of the Japanese essence of design languages and bring them into the one large exhibition in Tokyo. So this has been presented in the new art center of Tokyo of Japan. And in 2023, last year, has been sort of different experience for the visitor who could discovering for all these contemporary designer and creator and to be able to sort of talk about everything that we can see and beyond the time to talk about the design. So this was one of the first prototype showcases and to be able to communicate this entire exhibition. And I've been part of the participant as well as the design of this exhibition, which has been greatly successful. And then this project has been sort of taken to the Japan House project and to be traveling from Sao Paulo and this time in Los Angeles, and it's going to be in London in this year. And also like we are also introducing this sort of the workshop, which is also part of this Los Angeles section to have public participant to share the treasure of what you see the design. And today I would like to also share my personal experience for discovering this Jōmon period and that I have been visited in the north part of Japan in Iwate, the Ichinohe city for the Goshono Jōmon Museum. As you may see, a very small letter that you can see this is the time of frame of Japanese history. So to the top, and today we are in the modern period, before Edo, or Muromachi, Kamakura, Heian. So these are sort of period of Japanese history. But when you see looking down, it appeared the long timeline was taken by the Jōmon. So when I zoom it a bit larger, actually we call it this modern period or modern design. It's only 100, nearly 50 years. So Jōmon has even larger history, nearly 10,000 years. So I was questioning myself, such a large amount of time when people have lived for over 10,000 years, what kind of life they had? How do they form the society? How do they able to live with the nature and to think the way of life design? So I got an opportunity to visit this Jōmon outdoor museum in Goshono and to have this sort of archaeological site. And greatly they have been taking this kind of archaeological site to restore different types of the houses to be constructed. And including the investigation, they have built sort of primitive houses and to be able to investigate how do they live, how do they able to construct even this sort of the houses in that period in the Jōmon. One of the greatest discovery that also the president of the museum has been contributing to share the knowledge of by experimenting with this sort of restoration of the houses was some way by looking at this drawing that you may see is sort of central part of the house has been digged down for nearly 60 centimeter or even larger one is 1 meter down to gather all the soil and put it back on the rooftop in order to keep the temperature control for creating an environment of indoor and outdoor. By doing so, the soil will provide the air tightness as well as the insulation material to be able to sort of control the environment of the indoor spaces. By looking at those, also the investigation, I've been trying to analyze and to be able to see different type of design has been sort of invented by the Jōmon people. By looking at this Jōmon at the center part of the village, where people has been sort of immigrate and then traveling around different nature, and then once they got the settlement in the Jōmon period, how do they sort of create? By designing the soil, designing the fire, designing the spirits in order to sort of form the society. So by investigating before going to the place, I've been very much fascinated to see how humanity of the life has been formed. Surprisingly, when I decided to go to visit the Goshono, it was completely cold at the winter time, that I see only white snow and very cold. But there was only time that I had a one day to visit, so I tried to force myself to discover those great restoration of the houses. And finally, within the white snow, I discovered those houses, and then to be able to check also this kind of soil roof, which has been covering top of these houses. So the Jōmon design began with the designing the soil. The settlement is the beginning of the design. When people start to live in the settlement, they have to come up to find the material, which was one of the first material they touched was the soil. By digging the soil and they create sort of indoor environment when people usually lived and traveling at hunt and gathering period, and to be also living around even cave. But first time they need to construct sort of cold house. And so when I entered to the house, there was such a sort of very warm, sort of welcoming environment where it's been protected out of those very cold snow and to be able to sort of stay inside. And then the interesting part, also the middle part, there was sort of fireplace was taking the part of the main entry, and then everything that was surrounded by center of the house. But also discovering to see the ground where some part of the soil had been very much kind of compressed at the flat, as well as some part of the surrounding of the edge of the house has been very softly untouched, which was also important part of the life part of the daily use of the house has been kind of used as many activities get so solid, as well as where the deeper part of the house, which needs to be the sleeping sort of bed area, which has been sort of kept at the soft the soil condition. So even the use of the soil has been designed at the kind of where the hard and the soft part in the house. As well as by looking at this sort of the indoor towards the outside, it looks very cold. I don't want to go out after such a comfortably covered by this sort of great house, which makes me think was that one of the preserving the fire was suggest the concept of setting down, because living in one location may foster a sense of time and the place. So gradually, by physical experience, to be in the part of the environment, somehow this primitive notion of discovery made me to think, what if I were the Jōmon period and Jōmon person? How do we live in this sort of hard environment to survive, and then to be able to construct, and then to see what kind of experience, how to continue the life to be in sort of with the society. As well as this kind of settlement in the one place, the experiences of the everyday life, and also some part of the people who passed away, and to be able to get the emotion and to farewell are the very different feeling. So the beginning of the time consciousness has been emerged. So by the center of the houses, there are part called the Nakamura, which is the center part of the village, where it has a sort of small pavilion has been constructed, where the sort of the body of the dead people would be staying and to be able to sort of use as a celebration of the farewells. So that period also made me to think that society, when people were migrating and traveling around the nature, that when the people could not follow, they left it on those part of the journey. But when this society has been made a settlement, and they started to have a different type of emotion and to be able to sort of farewell the body to be the spirit and then goes to the life. So where the sort of the way of the after the life of migration, they began to settle down and design become necessary for the settlement rather than for the survivals. So as you can see, by the sort of having a settlement in the village where people started discovering for how to communicate with the nature and cutting the trees and creating to construct different parts of the village with the houses, center of the village, and to be able to have this kind of pavilion for the farewell at the center of the houses. As well as this sort of getting together, also planting some different seeds and to be able to wait for the springtime to collect different type of the material for the food. In the museum, and also there are different type of the covered the pots has been displayed in the Goshono Museum. By looking at this, also there are very beautiful Jōmon potteries and had a different the texture and then ornamentation of the pot has been designed. And also interesting parts to the left side and the right side had very different type of the form, which also explain in this kind of the plant where the pot of the very simple part was next to the entrance where the daily life of the collected the food things are kind of put it in this pot, where the important part of more designed ornamented the pot has been kept as more treasures the backside of the deep part of the house, including all these other stones and also the way of the designing the tools are very important for the life to be in the nature. So by more experimenting and then lived together with the different type of nature and then designing of the tool has been also part of the life, as well as the different parts of this soil has been forming different jewels and even coins has been invented those periods. So the Jōmon life design, the soil fire, form the society and they give the spirits. So spirits, when some of the people live together and forming the family and spending time together, but one moment they could not talk and they died. And to be able to sort of struggling for how to express the emotion, maybe Jōmon period started to forming to put different sort of the figures at the materialization, as well as to farewell or even celebrate for the different type of ceremony. They design this kind of special pots or even the small cups of sake has been already discovered that period. So giving the form of the soul, the memory began to be designed. So those sort of discovery for experiencing this Jōmon Goshono that I've been part of this traveling exhibition and to be sort of displaying in Los Angeles today for displaying the pots and then all these kind of parts of the Jōmon village as a part of the design and philosophy. I hope you may have a chance to also visit this exhibition for Japan House until the April 14th and to discover the part of the Japanese design as not only the modern design, but to have different period, different types of the technologies, as well as the primitive tools, as well as different type of idea for the future. And so this is the part of my presentation, and thank you very much for your listening.
Thank you, Tane-san. That was really a fascinating look into your work and the world of Jōmon culture and their design. Before we get to some questions from the audience, I'd like to talk with you a little more about your architectural philosophy and its connections to the possible National Design Museum, and also your experience at Goshono and the legacy of Jōmon design that may still be evident in contemporary Japanese design. But I'd like to begin our conversation here. I recall your quote referencing Issei Miyake. He left us way too early, but with his ideas for a museum, a design museum, he gave the next generation an opportunity to think about the future of Japanese design and what a design museum might look like. It's a really beautiful idea, a really beautiful gift that he left that generation. And thinking of the future and your philosophical ideas surrounding archaeology of the future, how would you go about designing this type of museum? What aspects, what parts of that museum would be important to you in creating a museum, a Japanese design museum?
It is a big challenge, actually, first of all, we have been gathering different designers and to talk about what we see and what we call design, what it means for us today. It was long discussion and there was no good result because design has sort of imported meaning from other modern design. Somehow we connotate the design always somehow referring to the modern design or contemporary design. But actually, when I started think together with a group of discussion, that basically the design could also think the life culture, which has been created by different generations to form the society, how to live together, how to communicate with nature, how to even create a tool. So this continuous idea of human invention and generation pass on to the other next generation, and such a great richness that we don't talk about today, we don't see today, but there are the roots, they're the DNA. That could have been maybe interesting for especially Japan, has never been disconnected from the Jōmon period until contemporary design, could always to see the different genes of continuity. So what if we're gonna design, maybe we are behind from this design museum, but if we're gonna do it 21st century of design museum, maybe more interesting to stretch the time frame to discover, think archaeologically and anthropologically to connect design of today and to see the future from the past. So this is sort of, we are trying to see as a network and to see that from north to the south, and then also the period of the different timeline could be networked. And that's the idea today.
And carrying the history and our past into the present, and how, and creating a future for that past, for a future community to view that past, it really reminds us of where we have come from and helps us feel value in our past. And I think it really is a integral part in not only carrying on, but incorporating into architecture. And especially design, there's so much has come from the past, of course. But for example, in Jōmon society or in Jōmon design, what designs do you see that may be evident in current Japanese design or current Japanese architecture that may be a carryover from Jōmon design?
I think like one of the very important the notion was somehow our modern design or even contemporary design 21st century, our life has been very accelerated and very fast, and we start forgetting many things very quickly, especially these kind of information technologies and digital technologies, or now today we talk about AI, has sort of great innovation and expansion of the time has been very, very accelerated. Therefore, we want to connect this kind of, we don't see the future very long time that, for example, even 10 years, it's hard to imagine our life what it's gonna be. Therefore, going backwards 10,000 years to see long past could also see the future connection where, for example, when I was in Jomon, as I was the badly arriving the very cold winter time in the full of snow. When I entered to the house, I felt the fire was so precious, and why the fire was invented by this sort of Jomon period and trying to keep it in order to dig down and create this sort of warmness to save your life. Where probably modern time, also the winter in Japan, there was no air conditioning, so there was called Irori. Irori was the center of the house, where the warmness and the cooking and the gathering of the center of the house, where modern time kind of invented, we call the kotatsu, which was kind of electricity and plug into the warmness without any loss of big electrical or heating system. So somehow this sort of our body requiring for this comfort somehow connected from this kind of more like very rooted experience.
And through that physical experience there with the elements in Iwate during that winter, you really felt that with your own body and that need, and you could, I guess, transpose that or think about that. The people actually experiencing that environment it influenced your, I guess, perception, and you were learning physically through the elements.
I think
there.
so too. Yeah. Because of when I was in this kind of minus 10 degrees in the full of snow, and myself, even there was TV crew from NHK trying to document the experience, and we all felt that how almost impossible to live in the nature and was super cold. Our modern life has been providing too much comfort. So it made us to think like how the humanity of life was able to live sort of settlement. So that was the first sort of the impression that the fire was really the heart of the life to settle yourself. Surprisingly, I discovered that that time in Jomon period, that the temperature was 15 degrees warmer, 10 to 15 degrees warmer than today. Therefore, I was misunderstood that period looks like very much winter and very cold, but actually it was warmer in that period in Jomon.
But I still would imagine exposure to the elements and was a very important thing to manage for them. And the importance as they settled as a culture, going from a migratory culture to settling down, it offered time to think about their place in nature and perhaps larger ideas about life and death and what that may mean. And having the time after settling, that gave them the opportunity to think about what the human spirit is and begin to design these ideas of the human spirit.
No, that's a wonderful question that I had thought, because of somehow the place tells a lot of things. So when I went there, standing on the field and to sort of imagine myself, that when you were on migrate, traveling around journey with hunt and gathering, there was maybe not same concept of family, was not same family of today as modern family. And also society wasn't the same as modern society. So the over 8,000 years, apparently there was no war within the form of those Jomon period. There are a few cases that has been sort of fight, but never been fighting with different villages. There was very safety and also the peaceful life has been formed in Jomon. But at the same time, once you form in the society, some of your friends, family, even children, got passed away. And I was imagining myself that how do they deal with your emotion? How do they feel the sadness? And they didn't have a language. They didn't have a skill to express it. But in order to sort of keep the memory of those emotions, maybe they started forming different parts of the little figures and to be able to sort of part of your life. So somehow by visiting this, I had a lot of discussion with the president of the museum, and then maybe this kind of memory started kind of giving the notion of the consciousness of the time has been created. And so there are things has been designed by the living in the settlement in the beginning of the design started.
Wow. I mean, you can really see this giving shape to the human spirit through the small icons and fetishes and human forms that they began to make. And
it is interesting, maybe you may see in the exhibition in Japan House, by looking at it, really facing into the object where you can start communicate those feeling. So that was one of the great things, that when I went to Goshono, as well as displaying all the object, you really connect with the people who is almost at the time that has been a long period, but you feel like humanity as how do they feel?
And we feel very lucky to be able to show those pieces from Goshono that you arranged to have as part of this exhibition. And two of the very big Jōmon pots are there right in front of, as you walk into our exhibition, and they're there very close, and you can, our guests have the wonderful opportunity to see them up close. And I do hope that everybody can come and experience that. It is quite something to see.
It was a great contribution from the Goshono Museum, that for me, it was very important that you really can connect the air. You really can feel the existence of the material without any showcase. Thanks to the Goshono, that we are able to display without any cover, and that you really can see. That's kind of very special feeling.
It is quite special. I'd like to go to some questions from our audience, if that's okay with you, Tane-san.
Yeah.
One question for you: did your experience had Goshono influence your work moving forward, or how you view your current work? As I said, influence on your work?
I would say yes, very much. In the sense that the Jōmon was one of the somehow my intuitive interests since a long time, through the book and through some object. But the visiting Goshono Museum, it was deeply experiencing to be in a part of the village, which is completely different physical experience, and to be part of how the imagination of 10,000 years ago, how do we live together? How do we form the society? What are the rules? How the relation between the children to the other elderly people, living in nature, how the material has been sourced, and what type of technique, tools has been invented. So there are sort of this kind of, the question to the imagination has been very much connected because of the Jōmon village experience. The village is sort of the center of how the society formed. So as an architect, for me, it was sort of the fundamental way of understanding the other architect, and then to see how the principle of the humanity has been started, those settlement made me to think a lot.
I see. Thank you. And another question. Many of our viewers are saying today they want to thank you for your wonderful presentation, and they're quite interested in your archaeology of the future philosophy with regard to architecture. And one viewer asks, what is your favorite architecture around the world? Do you have any suggestions on what to go see or visit that may not be perhaps as well known as some of the major projects or buildings?
I've been asked many times that what is my favorite building or architecture. It's hard to say because of the, not specifically, this is the one that I think I could choose as the example. But if I may have to suggest, when I started the architect career, that I saw the book of Antonio Gaudi in Barcelona, which is somehow made me to think, to realize what it means the architecture is. because of this Gaudi.
Mhm.
For example, when you think of the without Antonio Gaudi in Barcelona, it no longer is a Barcelona without the Gaudi. So the architecture can give the identity, can give the pride, and give the sort of the symbol of the society, and give the meaning and the memory to the people. So to me, the architecture is not the building; it's more beyond the power of this architecture can be created. So if I would be able to give the example, this is Antonio Gaudi that he created the Barcelona. It's something very, very special for our human society.
That's quite interesting. You said that buildings from Gaudi give identity to that area or to Barcelona. And, you know, I often think about architects and their perspective when starting a project. Do you think about, oh, okay, my building will now be giving an identity to this place? It's a continuation, as you said, of this history, the archaeology of the future, that what I, as an architect, what you're offering that place may become its identity. And perhaps in contrast, the Jomon people, they might not have thought about identity of a place at all. And we as a contemporary society are essentially assigning identity of that place to, you know, because of the Jomon people after the fact, I guess. But do you think about identity of a place and what it will become?
I think so. Like before our industrialization, each city has its own style. Where city of Paris is very different from city of London, and city of London is very different from city of New York or Los Angeles. But because of this kind of industrialization of the materials, and also the designing the process of planning of modern building, we call it international style, spread around the global impact. So now today, the center of the city has no identity. It has sort of the technological modern building at high rises taking over the global impact for the capitalization. So we lost the identity rather than creating this kind of more spaces, but no places. But I would say Jomon, the center of the Jomon village, where we call it Nakamura, which was sort of creating a lifted pavilion where the ceremony had been created. So there was definitely the notion of the society to create the identity was kind of forming the society to be recognized. I would imagine this is a sort of natural desire of our humanity.
Yeah, I can feel that. I would like to go to one more question before we close today. How was your experience with working with Issei Miyake, and did you get any influence from him during your time with him in discussing the design museum?
Issei is one of the great master for me, and especially strong inspiration even today, even no longer he's with us anymore. So he had such a great vision of design. I'm trying to always think of the reference. What if we think he would be part of design museum, or how he would be think about design? That I trying to imagine what he may talk about it. And so it was a very surprise for me the first time he called me to come to his office to see. I visited 2012 in his office, and then made me have a first contact with him, and then have a small conversation. Was he asked me to do the one mission, which is 2121 design site, which is part of this exhibition place in Tokyo that he opened. He asked me to design the one exhibition for 2121 for the front gallery, which is a part of maybe your city.
Yes.
So I have to design as an architect for designing the front gallery exhibition. So I have to be in charge. But Issei asked me to do it. So and I asked him, Issei, what should I do? And he said, go and meet him. So I have to fly to LA and then to meet the front gallery, and then start to work for this Hungary exhibition called I Have ID in 2015 that it's been open. But somehow this sort of essay made the inspiration for this kind of design is the way to think for our life to be more our material culture. It is very important to think without the material, what we feel, what we can touch, and what we can exchange. Without all this, we become more poor without any materials. Therefore, for me, the essay made a lot of great contribution for everybody.
Well, his designs are wonderful, and they feel wonderful as well. Yes,
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, Tane-san, for your presentation, your time, your insight. It would be so wonderful to welcome you here in LA again.
Yeah, I would like to. Yes.
Please stop by if you do happen to be in Los Angeles again in the future. I
Definitely.
know we'll all keep following your work and the next evolution of Design Museum Japan. Thank you again.
Thank you very much for today's talk.
Okay,
Yeah, have a
hope
good
to see
evening.
you soon.
Hope to see you. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Now I'd like to introduce next guest speaker from JNTO, Ms. Rose Lifschitz. She serves as the marketing coordinator at JNTO's Los Angeles office with nearly 10 years of experience living and working in Japan. Ms. Lifschitz relocated to Japan in 2013 through 2022. And throughout her time in Japan, she engaged in various roles with local schools, government, and the travel industry. Upon returning to the US, she joined JNTO, where she continues to actively promote Japan's tourism. She was also part of our previous webinar for the Kyushu talk we had last month. She will be sharing insight on the things to do in the Tohoku area, along with valuable travel tips. I'd like to welcome Rose.
Hi. Thank you so
Hey.
much, Trust. It's great to be here. And thank you all so much for tuning in today. So my name is Rose, and I'm with JNTO at the LA office just downtown. Let me get this presentation up and running real quick. So thank you guys so much for tuning in today. Again, I'm really happy to be here to speak to you all. So basically, as part of Japan's tourism board, a lot of what I do is introduce Japan as a travel destination. I give out any information I can to help prep you for your journey, and then hopefully send you on your way feeling nice and ready. So just as a quick refresher for those of you who haven't joined one of these webinars before, for first-timers who usually want to go to Japan but don't really know where to go, we typically recommend something called the Golden Route. So this is a very well-known 7 to 10-day itinerary. It's kind of the gold standard trip because you get a really great snapshot of the country with big city, nature, tradition, amazing food. It also starts and ends at major international airports, and it is fully accessible with the bullet train, which you can see demarcated by those lines running throughout the country. But if you look at those lines, you'll see they extend far past these stops through both northern and western Japan, and not everyone takes advantage of that to see some of Japan's other lesser traversed areas. You can visit these places as Golden Route extensions, but honestly, they really do stand out on their own as solo itineraries. They have really unique culture, flavors, activities, iconic sites. So in keeping sort of with today's theme, we're going to move past the Golden Route and introduce this northern region over here. So welcome to Tohoku. So this northern territory is really known for its beautiful landscapes, historical treasures, outdoor summer adventures, and of course the endless powder snow you can find in the winter. So it's made up of 6 rural prefectures that are really bound together by custom and heritage. You can also see a lot of ports throughout the region, so it's often incorporated as a destination for international cruises that are sailing around Japan, and you do also get airlift with airports and access with train lines, which I'll get to in just a bit. So Tohoku is really a smash hit with nature lovers in particular. It's really not hard to see why. You get access to really gorgeous mountain ranges like Mount Zao, Bandai, Apikogen, so you can go hiking, skiing, and snowboarding. But you also get this contrast with these really rugged coastal routes with cliff tops, remote beaches, fishing villages. But for those who prefer to stick to the scenic route without the adventure, you do have your pick of places to kick back and relax, from calming bays to serene rivers to, of course, all those wonderful hot springs. Now, history buffs are also really drawn to Tohoku, which is strong in its samurai history and has meticulously preserved many traditional sites, from old samurai residences and post towns that look like they've been plucked right out of the Edo period, to archaeological sites, of course, that allow you to peek through a window into Japan's prehistoric past. So northern Japan is actually home to 17 Jōmon prehistoric archaeological sites that UNESCO actually added to the World Cultural Heritage List back in 2021, pretty recently. So this is just a really fabulous region to sort of tickle your imagination of what life looked like in those older days of Japan. And you've also got opportunities to stay in traditional hot spring accommodations and rustic village homes, so you can really get that sense of wonderful immersion. Now, of course, we can't skip talking about food. So as a region that's known for the hardiness of both its food and its people, you can find some really great variety of local cuisine here. So the more wintry regions up north, for example, have piping, sort of hot, gooey treats like fire-roasted kiritampo rice skewers and rich stews, whereas some of the inland and mountainous regions might specialize in root vegetable dishes that really celebrate the local harvest. And of course, coastal areas have amazing seafood like oysters, grilled fish, and seafood bowls. And fun fact, Tohoku is known for its rice production. And where you get premium rice, you also get premium sake. Now, like any region in Japan, Tohoku is also very fiercely influenced by local tradition, and you'll find really unique ones to take part in, from the shamanistic, nature-driven shugendo practices of Yamabushi deep in the mountains, to getting to harvest your own crops with sustainable farming experiences in Akita, to touring centuries-old breweries in Fukushima to see how the prime sake is made up north. And festivals are also, of course, a really great way to engage with the local community. There's really nothing quite like those vibrant floats, the parades of musicians, and those amazing processions of dancers through the streets. And you will find festivals going on in pretty much every season. There's really no wrong time to visit. Now, a lot of people often ask me about the JR Pass. So for those of you who aren't familiar with this, this is the countrywide pass that gives you unlimited train rides on JR lines. So you pay a flat rate for a set period of time. It's exclusively for tourists visiting to help them make the most of their trip. But not everyone knows about regional passes. So Tohoku actually has its own pass, the JR East Pass, which covers all of Tohoku. So as you can see, you can use it on multiple bullet train lines to help you explore the area. So this is also a good option to consider for those who are getting into Tokyo, but they really just want to focus a bit on travel up north. So today I'm going to introduce you to an itinerary that winds through Tohoku, and in the interest of time, this is only going to take us through some of the prefectures here, maybe ideal for about a week, but you can definitely extend it to include Yamagata and Akita as well. So first off, we're going to kick it off in Tokyo. So obviously this is on every first-timer's itinerary. Most people fly in and out of Tokyo at the start and end of their journey, so it's a really natural starting point for an itinerary. And the impression people get of Tokyo typically is from the buzzing crowds, the vibrant nightlife, but the city is really, really diverse. You'll find neighborhoods are really unique from one another depending on where you choose to explore. You can find vibrant street fashion in Harajuku. You can go brand name shopping in Ginza. You can check out museums in Ueno or temples and shrines in Asakusa. There's really no end to how many unique itineraries you can create just in Tokyo. And while most people don't really think of it as a place to enjoy yourself in nature, you'll actually find a lot of great little pockets of greenery throughout the city, like traditional gardens and sprawling parks that have seasonal blooms. And also, fun fact, Tokyo has the most Michelin star rated restaurants of any city in the world. So this is a really great place to go restaurant and bar hopping. You can try everything from 3 Michelin star rooftop fusion restaurants to more salt of the earth fried fare or ramen in one of your local haunts. I myself lived in Tokyo for nearly 5 years, and I never really felt like I could fully explore it. There's always something new and exciting to do and see there. Now here's where we're going to start venturing a bit more up north. So our first stop is Fukushima. So you can hop on the Shinkansen bullet train to get here in about an hour and a half. So you can also do it as a day trip or an overnight from Tokyo. So Fukushima is really abundant in nature, from mountains to multicolored mineral lakes to valleys and forestry. And international and local visitors have long been drawn to the wilderness you can find here. And more recently, winter sports enthusiasts have discovered the charms of the area in places like Mount Bandai, which has ski resorts, so you can access that prime powder snow. And then you can use restorative hot springs to really soak your sore muscles in after. And also Fukushima has some of Japan's best fruit and sake, so great for any gastro tourist. So for those who want to kick back and relax in nature after a few days on the go in Tokyo, accessible from Fukushima city itself is Hanamiyama. So this is that stunning park behind me and also on the screen there. So this is a park with 70 varieties of blooms like plum, cherry, and peach blossoms. It's barrier-free, so this is just a great place to visit in the spring when things warm up a bit and the different species of flowers come into bloom. But one of the other major draws to this prefecture, for those who want to appreciate more of that tradition, is the Aizu Wakamatsu area. So this is a really beautiful valley area that has traditional landscapes, hot springs, the iconic Tsuruga Castle, great local crafts like Aizu lacquerware. And one of the more popular sites here is Ochijuku, you can see on the top left there, with those traditional thatched roofed homes. And nearby it is also Higashiyama Onsen with riverside bathhouses and tea houses. And you can also visit preserved buildings like the Aizu Bukeyashiki, which details samurai history. So this is just a really great place to feel some of that immersion. Okay, so next up, we're gonna head a little more north to Miyagi. So Miyagi attracts visitors far and wide with historical attractions, festivals, and really iconic bay views. So Sendai is the largest city in Tohoku, so this is a great base for exploring the whole region. But the city itself is honestly a gem on its own with great shopping, festivities, dining experiences. Definitely make sure you try the local gyutan or beef tongue, or if you have more of a sweet tooth, you can try zunda sweets, which are they're bean-based. You can find them at traditional confectionaries in the city. Now, while it is a bustling city, at the same time, you can find the area's samurai history is really well preserved in historical sites and architectural treasures. So in particular, the town proudly displays monuments to Masamune Date. So this is one of the most prominent samurai in Japanese history who actually founded the city. So you can find references to him in really iconic sites like the Sendai Aoba Castle ruins, Aoba Castle Park, Zuihoden, and more. But for those who want to, again, get out in nature, you've got a lot of options here, whether you want to bask in the beauty of Matsushima Bay while chowing down on local oysters, or soak in the iconic hot springs in Naruko Gorge and Akiyu and so on. A lot of people take the trip out to Zao. So this is an area that actually borders Miyagi and Yamagata with skiing and hiking, hot springs, a really unique nature like the Zao snow monsters you can see there. These are actually just frost-covered trees on the mountainside, and also unique natural formations like Okama Crater. And the area is also quite popular recently for the Zao Fox Village, where you can have an up-close encounter with the adorable foxes that live there. All right, we're heading more north to Iwate Prefecture. So Iwate is really marked by common themes of nature worship and tradition. It takes really great pride in its Tohoku roots. So the main city here is Morioka. Depending on when you visit the city, you may be able to catch one of the lively events here, from the Chagu Chagu Festival, which has colorful costumed horses through the streets getting paraded, to the Morioka Sansa Odori Festival. You can see there, this is the largest taiko drum festival in the world. But at the center of the city is also Iwate Park, and this was built on the former site of Morioka Castle. It's a really popular spot for cherry blossoms and also autumn colors in the fall. And you can also find areas just a short ways out of the city with restorative onsen and traditional ryokan. But I have to talk about the food here. So Morioka is known for noodle dishes, but one of the really fun local specialties is wanko soba. So each bowl has a small amount of soba noodles, but the twist is once you finish it, you can see that there are attending staff there armed at the ready to top you up with even more bowls of noodles. So over time, it's been something of an eating challenge, and there are actually competitions in Iwate to determine who can eat the most number of bowls. So if you're confident in your soba noodle eating ability, definitely give it a go. But Iwate in general is really the perfect place to get lost in nature with coastlines, mountains, caves, gorges, and more. So it's a really popular destination for adventure seekers. As we've now heard from Tane-san, it's also home to the Goshono site. So this is the Jōmon hub settlement with graves and ritual earthen mounds surrounded by residential areas. So this is a great place to really feel the livelihood of the Jōmon period. And the unearthed items from here really showcases that. If you are interested in some more local culture, another great area to visit is Tono. So this is an area known for its folklore of kappa. So some of you might know of these. These are mythical monsters that are said to lure you into rivers to eat you. They were originally created to keep children from going too close to rivers and ponds and lakes, but you can visit the Tono Municipal Museum to learn more, or visit Kappabuchi, which is a stream that has a small shrine dedicated to kappa. And the area also has a reconstructed farming village and open air museum, the Tono Furusato Village. So you can visit that, try activities like straw and bamboo crafting and farming, and also enjoy some traditional fare and homebrewed sake. And then finally, we head up to Aomori. So this is a major port city, so you'll find a lot of international cruises do dock here. So as you can imagine, you can get some great seafood at port, definitely worth stopping at the morning markets. And also, fun fact, Aomori is famous for apples. So if you get here in the summer or autumn, you get here in harvest season, so you can enjoy really great treats like apple pie, cider. You can go apple picking at farms, or even relax in an apple hot spring. So Hirosaki is a really major hub here that's home to one of the most popular cherry blossom viewing spots in the country, the Hirosaki Castle grounds you can see over there. So there are actually over 2,000 cherry trees planted here, so great spot to visit in the spring. And while you're in town, you can visit the Nebuta Village. So this is a recreational facility that really hones in on traditional culture and crafts of the Tsugaru region in Aomori, with displays of floats that are used in the summer Nebuta festival. They have craft workshops, performances of Tsugaru shamisen. This is a really cool regional instrument. People often liken it to American bluegrass for the play style. And some of the izakayas or pubs in town will actually have Tsugaru shamisen performances too, so you can actually have dinner with a show. But for those who, again, want to get out into the countryside, there's really a never bad season in Aomori. You've got a lot of great opportunities for adventure activities like cycling and canoeing. You've got some great hiking here. The Michinoku Coastal Trail is a great destination for hikers. It's actually 1,000 kilometers. It spans from Aomori all the way down to Fukushima, so you can really walk a portion of it anywhere on this itinerary. And also, the area is home to the Shirakami Sanchi area. This is home to the largest virgin beech forest in East Asia, and it's actually a designated UNESCO World Heritage Site. So great place to get lost in nature. But if you still want to learn more about Jōmon architecture, you can actually find in Aomori City, the Sannai Maruyama site. So this is an archaeological site that showcases life in the Jōmon period. And just next to the site is the Jōmon Jiyukan. So this is a museum that offers opportunities to try your hand at craft work that's been inspired by Jōmon culture. And then from Aomori, you can hop on the train, head right back down to Tokyo. So given there are only 4 of the northern prefectures here, you can really squeeze this itinerary into a week or less. You can extend it if you want to include some other areas in Tohoku, or just tweak it depending on how much time you have or what you're interested in. I know this was a lot of information, bit of a crash course to give you a sense of the region, but hopefully it stirred up some interest to see all of the wonderful sites here in person. So if you do want to learn more or have any questions for us about Japan, definitely check out our website. We have some great resources there for you and itineraries that you can use. But if you have any questions, you can, of course, contact one of our offices. I'm from the LA office. We do have an office in New York as well if you're on the East Coast. And I think that's it from me. We do have a quick video from Tohoku, actually, that will hopefully inspire you on your journeys. But thank you guys so much for listening, and we hope to see you in Japan.
Well, thank you, Rose, for the valuable information on the Tohoku area. The autumn colors of Miyagi's Naruko Gorge are just awesome. And by the way, my Wanko Soba record is 83.
Oh my goodness.
Well, I got a little ways to go, but we do have a couple questions. Let's see. When would be the best time to visit the Tohoku area to view the cherry blossoms? And do you recommend any places to visit?
Yeah, sure. So actually, this is a really good tip in general if you're wanting to see the cherry blossoms in Japan. They bloom from south to north. So the southern areas like Okinawa will see them as early as late January. And as you kind of go up in the country, they start blooming. Areas up north, like the very northernmost part of Tohoku, will see it in maybe mid-April, sometimes even late April. It's sort of like kind of hitting a moving target because a cold snap could delay them. Unseasonably warm weather could bring them earlier. But definitely, I'd say as you go up into the north in Tohoku, you can kind of push the cherry blossom viewing dates a little bit later. In terms of spot, there are a lot. I did talk about one of them in Aomori. That's one of the most famous ones, the Hirosaki Castle grounds, because they have over 2,000 trees planted there. So really, really gorgeous. Of course, the Hanamiyama Park behind me in Fukushima, as you can see, in full bloom, it's gorgeous. Kakunodate in Akita is also a beautiful area. It's kind of a samurai district where there are cherry blossom trees planted all down the street. So really, really nice to see in that season.
And the onsens, you mentioned a few, but I think that area does have a lot of volcanic activity, so there may be many onsens in northern Tohoku, isn't that right?
Yeah, I mean, you have your pick of onsen pretty much anywhere you go. There are some really wonderful ones there. I mentioned really briefly in Fukushima, the Higashiyama Onsen. That's a really famous one. It's considered one of the top 3 onsen villages of old Tohoku. It was actually said to be used by feudal lords and their samurai retainers in the past, so you can kind of soak in history in a very literal sense. One I didn't really get to in the presentation because it's in Yamagata is Ginzan Onsen, although I think I showed a photo of it. If you all Google it, it's gorgeous. It's nestled deep in the mountains, so it's a great place for a getaway within your Japan getaway. The town center's car-free, lots of beautiful old traditional architecture. It's really gorgeous when covered in snow as well.
Oh, well, thank you again, Rose, for sharing all that wonderful information. And for those who would like to send more questions to Rose regarding Tohoku tourism, please send them to the email address noted in the chat box. And with that, now I'm afraid it's time for us to wrap up. So on behalf of everyone joining us today, once again, I'd like to thank Mr. Tsuyoshi Tane and Ms. Rose Lifschitz from JNTO, and hopefully we'll see you again very soon. And thank you, everybody. See you again.